Alright, in this episode I'm going to do a quick assembly of a pulley, shaft, and keyway. This is outlined in Chapter 6 of your book. But to start with, I have to make a pulley, so I'm just going to go ahead and actually video how I make all of the individual parts as well for you. So this is going to be very similar to the other pulley that we've made already. I'm going to go ahead and open a sketch on the front plane, and then I'm going to go ahead and just draw out what the part is going to look like. Alright. This doesn't need to be exact, right? I can come back in here and modify all of this. Just trying to get it close right now. Okay, and now I'll put a center line in. Okay, and I'll start my dimensioning. Okay, so a few things to fix here. Make these collinear. And Okay, so it took a little bit of time, but I got this fully defined now. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it into a pulley by doing a revolve. Certainly a pretty complex way to do it, very different method than how the book did it. Oops, and I don't want to do an extrusion, I actually want to revolve this guy. And the axis of revolution, I want to choose that center line, finds the closed area, and I say check, that's what I want to do. Now the last thing I need to do is go ahead and put a keyway in this, so I'll open up a sketch on that plane, and I'm going to go ahead and get parallel to it and zoom in, and then I'll just draw me a box here, and the keyway, it looks like it has a top of 0.6 off of the center, so I can just say smart dimension to there, and that's going to be 0.6, and then I can grab the midpoint of this line and make it vertical. Okay, and then dimension the width of the keyway as being 0.25. Okay, and as long as this bottom of the box is in the hole, I'm fine leaving it actually undefined. And I can just go ahead and extrude that, and I'm going to say blind through all and check. Oopsies, and it did a I didn't want a boss extrude, I wanted extrude cut, right, blind, and I'll just say through all, check, and it cuts the part away. Alright, so there's my pulley. I'll go ahead and save this guy, so save, and I can just create a new folder, or I can just call it Pulley. Alright, the next part I need to create is the shaft that pulley goes on. And let me pull up the dimensions. This is in chapter 6. This would be problem 6.4. And we're given a shaft here, so I'm going to go ahead and actually, on the right plane, I'm going to open up a sketch. I'll dimension this guy. Looks like this shaft has a basic diameter of 1 1/8. And I'll go ahead and extrude the shaft. Looks like that length is 3 inches. Okay. And then the front of the shaft, I need to add a second extension to it. It has a diameter of 1 inch. And it needs to be extruded 2.25. And then off of that I need to add the keyway, and so I'll pull up this guy by selecting the face, and then I'll get perpendicular to it. And just like I did before, I'm going to draw a rectangle that goes across it. I'm given the dimension for this guy of being 0.4 off of the center, and I'll give it a width of 0.25 and maybe a depth of 0.3, and then put on a sketch relation where I select the midpoint, select the midpoint, and then hold Control and select the origin and make it vertical. It's fully defined, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Okay, so you can see there's the depth, and I want to cut the depth that shows that as being 2.25, so it looks good. Okay, I'm going to save this part. This is shaft. Okay, the last thing I need to do is to create the keyway, which is a very simple part. It's just a rectangle that's 1/4 by 0.20. And I'll do that. I'll open a sketch on the front plane, and I'll grab my rectangle, and it is 0.25 wide by 0.2 tall, and we'll go ahead and extrude that guy, and he's 2 inches long. Okay, and I'll save this as my key. Alright, Now to create the assembly, I just click on New, and instead of taking the part, I'll take an assembly, say OK. And when I do that, you'll notice over here in my Property Manager, it pulls up the open documents. I'm going to go ahead and have my shaft be the first part I place. Okay, and after that, notice the first part you place is fixed, and you can tell that by the little F in the feature tree or parts tree over here. And if you right-click on it, you can click on Float, and that F would go away, and it would no longer be fixed in space. You always want to have one part fixed in space, though, and you'll notice that makes your assembly fully defined. I'm going to go ahead and insert another component, and it pulls up my open documents again. And the next component I want to put in is the pulley. All right, and I'll just click anywhere in there, and the pulley is now floating in space here. The first thing I'm going to want to do is to get that pulley concentric to the shaft, so I select the inner diameter of the pulley, and I select the surface of the shaft, and then it automatically says, oh, I bet you want to put a concentric mate on that. I say, yep, I sure do. And next, I'm going to go ahead and mate this guy to the end of the shaft. Oops, then I'll hold Control. Okay, and I'm going to put a distance mate on it, and I'm going to put that distance as 0.2. Okay. And I think I'm going to anti-align that. Let me show you what that does. Okay, so by clicking on the anti-align, it made it so that the shaft sticks out just a bit there. If I'd done it the other way, it would have recessed the shaft 0.2. Alright, so the last thing, now my pulley, it's not fully defined because see the pulley can spin on the shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and insert now my last part. So insert components, key, alright, and I'll select the end face of the key, and then I'm going to control select the end of the shaft, and I'm going to say make those coincident. Okay, and look at that. It has put it so that it's lined up end to end here, which isn't what I want to do. So what I can do is I can open the mates. See over here in my feature tree, there's double paper clips and it says mates. This coincident mate, I can click on it, and in the flyout menu, click on Edit Mate. And what I'll do is the mate alignment, I'm going to click on the anti-align and it flips it around, and I'll say OK. Right? So there are two ways that mate could have been achieved. One was with that face mated coincident with the end face and the bulk of the pin going to the right, or the other is with the bulk of the pin going to the left. Alright, so we've got that there. Now next thing I want to do is I want to mate this face into the bottom of the keyway. Okay, that looks good, so I can just right click to accept, and then mate this face with that face. Right click to accept. Alright, so now my key is stuck in the key of the shaft, right? So the key here, oops, let me get out of the mate tool. The key here is stuck in the shaft, but I can still rotate this. Notice SOLIDWORKS doesn't really pay attention to whether the parts are overlapping or not. So now what I need to do is I need to mate this surface of the keyway, hold down Control and grab the inner surface of the keyway on the pulley, and make those coincident. And there you go. My assembly now is tied. I can't move this, right? It's all the mates are defining the positions of the parts. All right, there you go.